everyone. We're delighted to have you join us today. I'm Gail Brechting, the most recent past president of the Association of Concert Bands, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this installment of ACB Connects. These sessions are sponsored by the Association of Concert Bands, an international nonprofit organization whose mission is to foster excellence in concert band music through performance, education, and advocacy. We have just a few items before we begin today's discussion. ACB Connects is being recorded. Today's session will be archived along with many other fine resources previously recorded on the Connects page of the ACB website. Please mute yourself during this and take a moment to locate the chat and tell us your name, where you're from, and what band you play in. We welcome your questions. If you have any questions or comments for our guests, please submit them in the chat addressed to everyone, and as many as time allows will be addressed. We will share links and documents in the chat during the session. If you're viewing the recording, these links will appear along with the recording, and if you're joining us live, you will be able to see and save the chat. The ACB Development Committee has recently made planned giving an option for our members. With this in mind, we felt it would be beneficial to offer a roundtable discussion on the whys and how-tos for you with a recorded resource that will be available to all as you start to consider the legacy and donating and receiving. With us today are two field specialists on the topic of planned giving. Our moderator is ACB board member, Colonel retired Larry Lang, who is the executive director of the Amarillo Symphony in Amarillo, Texas. And he is formerly the commander and conductor of the United States Air Force Band in Washington, D.C. Larry, will you now introduce our guest, please?
Thank you, Gail. It's good to be with you, everyone. We're so excited to present this presentation to you on planned giving. Very pleased to have two experts in this area. Heidi Sytsema, she's the Vice President of Development and Donor Services at the Community Foundation for Muskegon County in Michigan. And then we have Kenneth Siebenmorgen. He's a certified financial planner and a private wealth advisor in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And so welcome, Heidi and Kenneth. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And, you know, I think I want to start with just the basics, right? And that's to define planned giving. Heidi, could you start us off with that basic definition?
Sure, Larry, thanks. And thanks for having me as a guest on this. I'm excited to join you. So planned giving is what it sounds like. It's a gift that you are going to give charitably and you're planning it, but it's not going to be a gift that you give during your lifetime. It's one that you plan to take place after your death. So often it happens through a will or through a beneficiary designation on a life insurance policy or a retirement account, something like that. Oftentimes, the other words that are used are estate planning or estate gift or legacy gift, planned gift. All of those things indicate pretty much the same thing. So,
yeah, I know, Kenneth, we had a chance to talk a little bit earlier and you broadened that definition slightly. Would you like to add to it?
Yes, for sure, Larry. And I echo Heidi's comments. It's a privilege to be on as a guest today and just very happy to help all the participants. So everything Heidi said is 100% what we believe in as well. We also look at planned giving as giving during our lifetime as well. So there are many organizations that of clients that we work with, and they're passionate about giving while they're living as well, especially if there's a capital campaign or some type of special project that the organization is raising funds for.
Yeah. Kenneth, let's stay with you for just a second and talk to me just a little bit about kind of the first steps. Maybe someone hasn't set that up for their organization yet. They want to try to get their feet wet and start utilizing that as a way of raising funds or as you mentioned, maybe generating relationships with people that might later bestow something on the organization.
Sure. So, you know, when individuals come to us and say, hey, they're wanting to do this for their church, their school, or their organization or nonprofit, questions that we ask, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So be able to answer that question. What's our purpose? Who's it going to impact? All those type of questions are what we should be able to answer to any potential donors as to why are we setting this planned giving program up.
Mm-hmm. And I know, Heidi, you've worked with some community bands. And so what are some of those first steps that you've seen be fruitful for them?
Yeah, so actually that's how I got invited to this. I've worked with Gail, who gave the introduction, because we live in the same community, and the West Michigan Concert Winds has an endowment fund within our community foundation where I work. And so and that can be a piece of a planned giving effort. It's not entirely that, but for folks, organizations that are thinking about starting up a planned giving effort, and I should say we also work with people to give while they're living and to plan gifts, in the general sense of planning. But from our perspective, when we talk about planned giving, it usually does involve end of life type gifts. And so that's the perspective that I'm coming from. And I would say when organizations are thinking about that, it doesn't have to be overwhelming and scary and overly technical. A lot of times people are like, well, I don't know about estate planning. I don't know about the ins and outs and all of the details of planned gifts like that. But don't let that scare you, because it's the same work as engaging donors for lifetime gifts that they want to give. So creating relationships, connecting with people, helping them give the gifts that they want to give during their lifetime. And then also just being able to suggest, hey, maybe you would like, this organization, this band has been really important to you during your lifetime. Might you consider including a gift to it in your future plans through your will or through a beneficiary designation? And so don't be afraid of it. And then, there are some resources, and I think we'll be talking about some of those things, but don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. So what are some of the types of gifts that people can give? Kenneth, what are some of the basics?
So, from the simplest standpoint, while we're living, I just writing a check to the organization, transferring cash, to the organization. So I would say that's probably the most common. But what we find, especially working with clients for a long time, they've invested maybe in Walmart stock, in Apple stock. They've held the stock for 20, 25 years. They have a large capital gain. They own real estate, but they have a large capital gain. And all of a sudden now they have, charitable desires. And so maybe instead of writing a check or cash, let's transfer some shares of your Apple stock, of your Walmart stock. Maybe let's transfer some of the acreage that you own to the charity, and that large gain goes with the gift. So it's a means to diversify a portfolio, which obviously benefits them. Get a tax deduction typically on the front end, but also help the charity that they're passionate about.
Right, right. And I know, Heidi, you often deal with qualified charitable donations as a primary way for someone that's 70 and a half or older.
Yes, that was the piece I was hoping you would ask about. That's another thing that we've really seen growing in popularity over the last probably 5 to 7 years. It's been really ramping up. It's been an option off and on for, I think, since like 2006, but Congress finally made it permanent a few years back. And what that does is it allows folks who have an IRA retirement account that once they turn, used to be 70 and a half, now it's I think 73, they have to start taking distributions from those IRAs. And what they can do is, if they don't need that money to live on all of it, if they transfer it directly to a nonprofit organization, they don't have to pay tax on it. So that's the QCD, the qualified charitable distribution. And you can start doing those at age 70 and a half. But for folks who have those assets, those resources, and don't need them to, buy groceries or pay their mortgage, being able to transfer those directly to a nonprofit like a concert band, we're seeing tremendous increase in the number of those. And often those gifts are a lot bigger than if someone had to write a check out of their checkbook. then you stop and think about it. Well, it's going to drop my balance, but if it's money you have to take out of your IRA anyway, instead of $100 or $200 gift, often they're $1,000, $5,000, and can go well beyond that too. So having information on how someone can do that and how they can do a stock gift right on your giving page, where you talk about, hey, you can give online with your credit card right now, or you can write a check. Also having information on how they can transfer appreciated stock or give with their IRAs is also really important.
Right, right. Well, we're all hoping that, of course, people just want to give, right? We're so good and we're doing such a great job in our community that they want to give to us. But if there's some hesitation, they might want to know a little bit more about the why. And I think Kenneth alluded to that earlier. So I'm thinking about scholarships, maybe for children that might want to participate in music in the community that are associated with the community band, or maybe a new music commission. Are there other things that you've talked to clients about in terms of trying to tell that story, that philanthropic story that pulls their heartstrings? Kenneth?
Yes, and I do want to reiterate Heidi's comment about the 70.5 distribution. That has become so popular. And many times retirees, they get to a point where their pension, maybe their Social Securities are providing adequate cash flow. And yes, at some point they have to take withdrawals. And to Heidi's point, that is a wonderful way to do giving while you're living. But to your point, Larry, so many people want to give for a purpose, for a passion. And if it's to buy new equipment, if it's to provide, yes, the funding for that child that maybe hasn't had the same benefits in their lifetime as other kids, and maybe they're going to give to the band program so that yes, they can get a scholarship and they can continue their education and continue their purpose, continue their passion, and then develop themselves through college and have a much more meaningful life. So it's impactful. It's impactful by giving and benefiting other individuals.
Yeah. Heidi, how about you? Have you had some personal stories or experiences that were kind of heart touching for you?
Yeah, stories are just a huge part of the work that we do in development and in creating that culture of philanthropy and of giving. And so, we aren't focused specifically on music in our work, but we work with a ton of different donors. And so, I guess the encouragement I would have is to think about all the different ways that someone might tap into that enthusiasm or the desire to support something, even if they're not a music lover. Maybe their mom was, maybe their dad was, maybe they loved being in 5th grade band and they got to go to the big city next door and see the symphony that one time and never played an instrument, but that experience and that exposure to something new was a big eye opener for them. And so I just think there's, with any particular organization or aspect of community life, and especially music, there's so many different ways that people could intersect with that. So telling lots of different stories where someone's going to find something that keys in with them. I will confess, don't hate me, music is not a huge thing for me. I am really bad at it. I tried a long time, but I still love to support our local symphony, and I still love to support, the kids that come by my house and knock on the door and want support for marching band, because I know it's so important for a community to have these resources and for kids to have the opportunity. That's what tugs at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
And so making sure people hear lots of the different angles, I think, is important.
Yeah. So we've talked about stock transfers, cash, qualified charitable donations, real estate, which I'm not a particular fan of myself in terms of getting that gift for the symphony because it has some complications. Kenneth, can you talk about some of the other gifts, and maybe some that are better than others, and maybe some that actually should be avoided because they come with legal complications or more paperwork than the average group wants to deal with?
Yeah. So, some gifts that are very easy to dispose of or to operate. Well, cash is a very easy gift. you've got money. Stock is publicly traded. You can liquidate it immediately, turn it into cash. Some real estate is better than others. If it's a piece of real estate that is highly sought after, that's probably a good gift that the charity can sell right away. If it's a piece of rental property that you don't know if someone's going to buy, maybe they're not in a good section of town. If it's a vehicle or gifts that aren't as liquid, then there's complications. That the board, when they're putting together their policy, we won't accept these types of gifts, and that's okay to not accept certain types of gifts.
Right. Like I'm thinking of automobiles and RVs or something like that probably
Boats.
something you don't want to deal with.
And could have some repercussions even to the charity, by accepting and then having to dispose of them. The buyer of that asset may come back on the charity.
Right, exactly. We talked a little bit about developing relationships. Are there other things that you guys have found successful in kind of developing those donor relationships? Like if we use a qualified charitable donation, that could lead to someone thinking about an estate gift later, right? Heidi?
Yeah, that it's certainly, whether they think about it on their own or not, it's up to you to probably suggest that to them, but that they have IRA assets then. And so getting to know them a little bit, thanking them for that, then you can go on later and do some special messaging to those folks. We do this regularly, saying, hey, we know you've given to us with your IRA before, and we know you care about us because you have given. If your kids inherit those IRAs, they pay a pretty steep tax on those, where most other assets that go to your kids, they don't pay an inheritance type of a tax on. And if the charity receives that IRA instead, or a piece of it, it's tax-free. And so letting people know that, that they should talk with their professional advisors, people like Kenneth, about that, and that can be a really great option. Oftentimes, that is a natural next step then. So we usually try to encourage nonprofits that we work with, any of your messaging that you're doing around giving, include a little PS about, have you thought about including the concert band in your future plans? Have you thought about, do you have to take distributions from your IRA? Did you know you could include us as a beneficiary? Just the little messaging that hits regularly to them. They say you have to hear a message 7 times before it takes hold, and so making sure that you're putting that message out there regularly for them to mull.
Yeah.
And Larry, if
go
I
ahead,
can,
Kenneth. Yeah.
if I can add to that, one thing I want to reference there, Heidi's comment about 7 messages. My wife says it takes 10 or 12 to get her message across to me. Sometimes it's as unfortunate as this sounds, tragic leads to charitable giving. And to Heidi's point, we have several clients who are giving at 70.5, and they're giving to the local college, and they're giving to other charities. One in particular lost, her son was a mechanic, wonderful mechanic, very, very well versed in it. And he suddenly died of a heart attack. And we talked to her, and I talked to her about, that's just tragic, but maybe you're being asked now to leave a legacy, for other mechanics. And so she started giving her her qualified charitable distribution each year to the local college, to the skilled trades area. She's leaving her IRA at her death to the college in her deceased son's memory. And so it's terrible to say, but sometimes tragic presents an opportunity for individuals to leave a legacy and make an impact on other individuals on behalf of their son or their family member, their daughter.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, right here in Amarillo, we have 4 youth orchestras that are part of the Amarillo Symphony program, and we lost one of the teenage members of that orchestra last year, and the parents immediately thought about establishing a scholarship fund in her name. And to date, we've received over $80,000 in just a year's time towards that scholarship fund. So you're right, tragedy does bring that opportunity, as And like you said, it's leaving a legacy for their daughter that they couldn't leave any other way.
And personally,
Mhm.
Larry, my wife and I lost a nephew at 18 years old from a blood clot.
Mhm.
And shortly after, just tragic. And shortly after that, good friend, he was a client as well. He uh, he he had appreciated real estate. We established a charitable remainder trust, transferred the real estate into the trust. He got a large tax deduction. He got income for his life, and then he died about 5 years later. And about $800,000 went to university for scholarship for my deceased nephew.
Yeah.
So that probably would not have happened unless there was, unfortunately,
Mhm.
tragic.
Mhm.
You
And I
mentioned
think
a charitable remainder trust, Kenneth. Before I go back to Heidi, can you explain that?
So it's not a common strategy that we see. That there's several versions of these types of trusts, but sometimes, especially executives of companies or people who have invested in a lot of stock, a lot of real estate, they have assets that have large capital gains. And they really don't want to sell the assets because they don't want to pay the capital gains. So it's a means of establishing a certain type of trust. Really need to review with the accountant, with the estate planning attorney, and transferring the shares of the stock, the real estate into a trust gives a tax deduction to the donor, typically gives income to the donor for their life, for the life of more than one person. And at their death, it goes to the charity of their choice.
I see. Yeah. And Heidi, I think you were going to add on maybe a personal story.
Well, I just wanted to share, yes, obviously, we have worked with a ton of people where, there is a tragic loss or even if it's a not unexpected loss, that is definitely a time when folks think about legacy and charitable giving. And there can be tragedy involved in that. But we've worked with, I would say, as many people where there's not a tragedy involved. There's joy. They are thrilled to be able to do the things that they want to do. And one comes to mind in particular. Our community foundation also happens to own the Frauenthal Theater in downtown Muskegon, which is a historic theater, and it's beautiful. It's where our symphony plays and other bands as well. And a woman was working with her financial advisor. She's learning that she's old enough that she's got to start taking money out of our IRA. And she's like, I don't know what to do with this. And her advisor was like, well, you could think about giving it. And they had just met with us. So they're like, you could start a fund to support the Frauenthal with your gifts. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm thrilled. Like, she's still working in a retail shop and she is so excited because her dad taught her to save her whole life. And she did. And now she's got these resources that she never dreamed she would have. And she's not like ultra wealthy or anything like that. But the fact that she can do something and give back in a way that she didn't really anticipate, like, she's over the moon and she's so excited. And then she uses her QCD every year to build it up and add to it. So there's, I would say, equal parts joy to consider as well. And so, some stories about that as well are also helpful.
Yeah. Now you work for a community foundation. Some people on the call or on the who are going to see this as it's recorded don't even know what that is. I've come to know that many communities have their own foundation. And tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so community foundations in general, I think pretty much any community in the US is covered by a community foundation. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Sometimes it might be one community foundation that covers a whole state. But here in Michigan, where I live, there are, our little county has its own community foundation, and most counties do. So community foundations are often used to be referred to as like the community's savings account. So we're based on endowment. People give to community foundations to support something that they love about their community. And then instead of, spending those gifts, we invest them and we use just the earnings each year to provide grants back into the community in the form of scholarships and grant support to lots of our nonprofits and things like that. So
Is
yeah.
that a viable choice for our audience, for a community band to set up a fund at the community foundation?
I would definitely inquire because, they say you've seen one community foundation, you've seen one community foundation. I know how we operate, and many of them operate similarly to us, but I can't say exactly, what their fund minimums are to establish or what kind of support they might provide, but it's definitely worth checking into because we provide a ton of capacity building support for our nonprofits that we work with. We provide free learning opportunities. They can start an endowment fund with us, and then once they do that, we are also sort of their, planned giving staff. If they're working with a donor who they think might have interest in doing something to plan for the long term, all they have to do is call us up and we'll come to the meeting and we'll help them. We become the expertise that the small concert band in our town does not necessarily have, or any other nonprofit. So it can be a tremendous resource, and I would definitely encourage folks to check it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if someone wants to learn more about planned giving, they could come to their local foundation and seek advice.
I would definitely start there. Yeah. Yep. And
Mhm.
I can't guarantee that they're going to offer something like that, but odds are good that they would.
Yeah, and you mentioned an online resource. That's a good place to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called freewill.com. And the platform itself is an online will planning platform that is free. So shocker, but that is a great resource for folks who need to do, will planning, and some other important documents out there if they can't afford an attorney or don't have options. But as a nonprofit, they have a tab right at the top of their website for nonprofits, and they have provided a ton of resources out there, training opportunities, webinars, research. Like I have depended on them over the last several years, just so many things, research on planned giving. We've implemented a number of their techniques that they suggest in terms of how to make it easy for someone to give with a QCD or give with their donor advised fund that they hold somewhere. They have tons of great resources out there on donor behavior, your writing, how to
Right.
write better to get donors, to actually give more. Lots of great stuff.
Freewill.com.
Freewill.com. Yep.
We'll make sure that gets in the chat, and
Please.
of
Yeah.
course we've
I
said
can,
it a couple
I can try.
times now.
Mhm.
Kenneth, I don't know your experience with community foundations, but certainly you're a certified financial planner and a wealth advisor. What role do you think you or people like you play in helping community bands get more information about planned giving?
Well, we always say, and I think I mentioned to you shortly before we started, we have a small cattle farm. That's part of our passion away from work. Individuals have passion. And so if you can just help people support or feed their passion. And to Heidi's point earlier, most people have joy in their heart, and they really want to help people. They want to help organizations. They want to help the mission of whatever that nonprofit has. And so I think, for board members that are on the call, just if you know people who are passionate about music, about helping the local band, about helping a student, then just take the next step and have a discussion with them. Have a discussion. Would you like to leave a legacy? Would you like to have an impact? What would you like to have fulfillment in helping others feed their passion?
In my experience, planned giving and other types of large gifts especially happen on a one-on-one basis, usually taking someone to a coffee or a lunch, or visiting them in their home or office. We've tried some group settings where we talked about a new planned giving program at our institution, and it was people didn't want to talk about giving in that group environment. So is that what you have discovered, Heidi, as well?
I think one-on-one is always a good bet. That's where you can have the more personal question and answer exchange back and forth. I think to the, whether it's 10 or 12 times like it is for Kenneth, or whether it's 7 times, sometimes those bigger group settings can be less intimidating or feel like less commitment if they just want to learn about something. So I think they can be used effectively. I think unfortunately, like with just about everything else right now, like you got to try a little bit of everything because different people are going to engage in different ways. But definitely in order to, I would say, close the deal and secure the gift, usually a one-on-one conversation is what's needed for that.
Is that where you are, Kenneth, as well?
It really is. One-on-one is great. I will say, a lot of givers though, they do like to. I don't want to say follow the leader, but at the same time, if they know others are giving, they feel an obligation to give as well. Especially business owners, community leaders. Again, so many people want to be impactful. They want to make a difference in the community, in people's lives. And if they know these people are, they almost feel an obligation that they should as well. So then it goes back to individually, well, they don't own stock. They don't own real estate. But to Heidi's earlier point, they do have to start taking money out of their IRA, pretty soon. So let's do it that way. And one other item I failed to mention previously, Larry, is as part of the education, the federal government did pass something a few years ago called the Secure Act. And to Heidi's earlier point about IRA distributions or IRA balances have to be withdrawn 10 years after someone passes away. So it's created a huge opportunity for planned giving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That now maybe children of heirs, and maybe the children are doing very well. All of a sudden, yes, the government's going to force those children to withdraw IRA balances over 10 years, whether they want to or not. Well, maybe let's leave part of this to if we don't do it now, let's do it at our death. So again, maybe that's a one-on-one discussion. Some people have IRAs, some people don't. Some people have a lot of stock, some people don't. Some people own real estate.
Right.
So it's a combination.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, we got a time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Tell me a little bit, Heidi, about your interaction with boards and what advice you would give a board member or a leader of one of our organizations as how to start one of these programs or to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think so it does require board support, and I don't know how many of your bands, have full staff to do these kinds of things, or if they tend to be more grassroots and have, boards are very active and they're doing the things on their own. But I think, like I said earlier, don't be afraid of it. You don't have to have all the technical expertise. Starting it and starting messaging about it can plant those seeds with people. And a simple thing, I can't remember, there was some question shared with us at the beginning, or beforehand, but I just went and said, okay, ChatGPT, I'm a small nonprofit band organization. What should I do to start a planned giving effort? And it came back with pretty spot on stuff. So there's easy resources right there to help you get up to speed on it in pretty plain English. I would say check out some of the free will webinars and resources that are out there because they break it down into very plain English and really approachable ways of talking with people about it. And there's tons of examples out there online too. So if you just Google, planned giving for concert bands, and I'm confident you will find a ton of resources out there that in the field of philanthropy, at least in community foundation work, shamelessly stealing everything we see. And it's very, people are happy to be stolen from. So. Right.
And Kenneth, how about you? Your association with different boards or leaders of different nonprofits?
So we have a saying, and I don't want this to be too strong when I say this to all the board members that are on the call, but we really need to eat what we cook. We need to eat what we cook. So the board members, they probably are passionate already, that they're probably committing a lot of their time, maybe commit some of their resources if they can, maybe commit some of their time and resources to, cultivating relationships in the community or, with people that they know have a passion, for music, for the band, for like I said, for the community. And testimonials are always so good. When you have a 15, 16, 17-year-old and they're talking about their passion, and a grandparent hears that, or maybe a parent hears that. It's very, very powerful. So testimonials from people that are going to benefit from the giving that the donor will do is very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Here with the Amarillo Symphony during Giving Tuesday in the fall, we have testimonials for each giving level. So everything from $25 to $10,000, and what that level of spending or donation is going to bring to the symphony, what kind of contribution that is really going to make. And then a little testimonial from someone in the symphony or in our youth orchestra or our community or our board that says, here's why I did it, or here's how it's impacted me. And it's so we've raised our giving during Giving Tuesday almost 10 times in 3 years.
That's great.
So and that I think I attribute all of it really to those stories and that personal attribution. So as we get close to the end here, can you guys give us any like pitfalls or mistakes that we don't want to make as we get going on this journey?
Not starting would be the
Yeah.
first, because these gifts don't happen. I mean, once in a while you get a surprise, and that's lovely, but without some kind of effort toward it and messaging around it, it's not likely to happen. And you might not know that it happens until several years down the road, but starting to talk about it, and then leading by example as a board and as participants in the organization, saying why you're planning that future gift because this organization has meant something to you during your lifetime. Those are important things too.
Yeah. Kenneth, how about you?
Well, a couple of personal experiences. This is about 20 years ago. A board that I was on, we did not have a clear policy, Larry, on what to do when stock came into the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular donor gave a large amount of stock. The board members did not make a decision right away to sell the stock.
Oh yeah.
The stock dropped dramatically, and the donor did not. We didn't have the funds then to do what the donor had intended to do.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So it needs to be clear policy by the board members when an asset does come in with an appreciated gain. Here's what we do.
Right.
So that we can fulfill the donor's wish.
Right.
Yeah.
The other pitfall that we've had a time or two, a couple of boards that I've been on, you can have toxic board members. You can have someone who maybe is well known in the community, but maybe has too strong a personality. Maybe talks a little bit too much. Donors sometimes want their intentions to be public. Sometimes donors want their intentions to be very, very private. So constantly honoring the wishes of the donor. But the donor is the CEO.
Yep, I agree with that. And so you mentioned gift acceptance policy. I'm sure there's some good ones out there. Freewill.com probably has some. I bet you could Google it or ask ChatGPT. Are there other places where a good policy would be found?
We have one at the Community Foundation, and we've had nonprofits ask us to, can I see a copy of that? Because they're trying to craft their own. So, checking with other nonprofits, I think, is a reasonable thing to do too. Usually people are willing to share examples of those kind of things. And they are important, like being able to say no. We always do want to honor donor intent, but if you have a donor who wants you to do something that really is not within your strategic alignment or what you want to do, just because they want to give you money to do it, doesn't mean that you have to accept that money. And we've had some instances where, having a clearly defined policy of what we do with a gift and like what types of gifts we won't accept. And then also, just the consciousness of, this is our mission. And just because someone wants to give us money to do this thing over here does not mean we have to accept it. So.
Right.
Another word for that, Larry, is transparency. That's as transparent as possible. Here's what we've done with your funds. So they can, they can see the impact.
Right. Talking about that, and this will probably be our final question, is there legal requirements or some things that need to be considered so you get all this money? Do you have to give them a receipt? Do you have to, what are some of the basics there at the end?
Yeah, I think the IRS, there's an IRS publication and it's online. I don't remember which one it is exactly, but it states specifically in it what the requirements are for acknowledging gifts. And there's certain language that should be on there. I believe the amount is any individual gift, $250 and up, requires a contemporaneous written receipt, I think is what they call it, that has the date of the gift, the amount of the gift, the name of the donor, the name of the organization, and a statement that says like no goods or services were received in exchange for this gift or something. And that's for cash gifts. If you're talking stock gifts, or non-cash gifts, then you don't assign a dollar value to that. You only describe what the gift was. So it's, 52 shares of Apple stock on this date, and then it's up to the donor and their tax situation to actually determine the tax deductible value of that gift. So.
Mm-hmm. Kenneth, anything to add to that?
Well, I would say, the message always to a donor, please consult your estate planning attorney. Please consult your tax preparers, Heidi, reference. Please consult your financial advisor. Okay. As sad as it is to say, always have disclaimers. But then, to Heidi's point, good records.
Yeah. So you guys are the experts. You've been doing this a while. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I think we covered the things that I had thought of, and the things related to the questions you sent us in advance. And I guess I would just say it has been a joy to be in this field for so long. And I was a CPA before that. And there is so much joy in helping people give. And oftentimes people say like, oh, I could never ask people for money. I could never do that. And it's, I would not want to have to do that regularly either. But even there's ways to do it that are non-threatening and that actually allow you to feel good as the person doing the asking and allow the donor to feel great about the thing that they're doing. And so it's not something to be afraid of. And there's so much joy to be found all the way around.
Yeah. Kenneth, how about you?
And Larry, I would reiterate that there's nothing more inspirational over 35 years of practice than helping people fulfill their passions.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to the board members, if they're wanting to develop some marketing materials or brochures, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but have the marketing materials, have the testimonial, show the brick and mortar, show what actually happens, with the funds that they donate to the organization. And it's the best part of our profession. It is helping people fulfill their charitable requests.
Yeah. So 2 questions have come in from Melanie. She's saying, what does a nonprofit need to do to report to the IRS regarding a gift? That's question number 1. And number 2 is, how does this work for a group who is not a 501c3? So what does a nonprofit have to do in reporting to the IRS? And then I guess if they're not a nonprofit, what do they do? Is there a difference?
So I guess in terms of individual gifts, there's nothing that the organization has to, for most gifts, I don't think any of them that I can think of, is there any kind of reporting mechanism back to the IRS, like when a gift happens? Any reporting that happens would be on your 990. If you're big enough that you have to file one of those, that's part of that process, and whoever puts together your 990 would be able to advise you on that specifically. But there's not like, oh, we received a gift today, we got to let the IRS know. There's not anything like that. And for a group who's not a 501c3, that's probably different, but I guess I don't know that I can speak to that.
Kenneth, anything on
your tax deductibility would be definitely different for the donor, but I don't know.
And yes, to Heidi's point, the nonprofit really should consult their tax preparer, their CPA. The nonprofit should consult a professional in the tax business as to what their reporting requirements are.
Yeah.
If they're not a 501c, obviously, I think you could give money to them, but to Heidi's point, I don't know that there would be any tax benefit, given to the donor.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, there would not be.
Well, listen, both of you have been wonderful. We appreciate your expertise and thank you so much for your time today. I think we all appreciate hearing, because this can be a little bit complicated, but you've made some of it sound a lot more interesting and something that I think a lot of us will want to pursue. So I want to thank you again and turn it back over to our past president, Gail Brechting.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been just wonderful. We're so glad that everyone could join us for our roundtable today. And we would like to thank our special guests, Heidi Sytsema and Kenneth Siebenmorgen, for sharing with us today, and to our moderator, Larry Lang. I would also like to offer a special thanks to my entire ACB Connects team. We are planning another roundtable discussion in the fall and winter with the topics of, quote, "Oh, what a good idea," unquote, sharing ideas of community outreach that you do with your band. Also, a Winter Connects of a 3-part series on geographical band comparisons, how smaller community, mid-sized city, and metro community bands operate in their own environment. Watch for the announcement of these special roundtable dates. Your 2025 ACB convention in Fort Smith, Arkansas, begins this Wednesday. Colonel retired Thomas Rotundi is the convention band conductor, and everything that's happening at the convention is now posted on the event website at acb2025.com. I hope you'll join us. The ACB partner band for that is the River Valley Community Band. Also, mark your calendars for the 2026 convention being held in Baltimore, Maryland, April 15 through 19, 2026. It's called Music Meets History in Charm City. And Dr. Alfred L. Watkins will be the convention band conductor. The ACB partner band is the Hunt Valley Wind Ensemble. For the links mentioned today and to access all previously recorded sessions of ACB Connects, please visit our website homepage at acbands.org. Also, you'll find information about becoming an ACB member, details on future sessions of ACB Connects, and a wealth of resources. Here's a great gift idea for your non-ACB member friends. Between July 1st and September 30th each year, we offer a 50% off membership dues for first-time members of ACB. They receive a membership for 6 months at 50% off the regular dues price. We also love to have you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify, and to have you subscribe to our own YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us today for this special opportunity to form new connections. We look forward to having you join us again at the next ACB Connects. Have a wonderful summer making music. Bye-bye.
Thank you.